Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and welcome to 2014, where Draw My Lives were relevant. But seriously, I'm doing a Draw My Life, so be prepared. This is just basically giving you some background on myself and my life, and how I got to where I am today, because I've realized I've been doing this for about a year, and not many of you know about me, like where I came from, what I studied, where I was born, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to cover. We're going to just draw my life, and I'll try and make it as interesting as possible, which is hard because I'm a boring person. I was born in Birmingham in the UK. Congratulations, you have access to all my passwords. But I wasn't there for long. I went to a region of the UK called Norfolk, which is predominantly known for its farms. That's literally all Norfolk has, just farms. But actually, I guess I also suppose it has got some nice beaches as well, but generally farms. I went to school here, so I was here from the ages of about 1 year to 18 years. All of my schooling was done in Norfolk. We didn't move. We only moved house once, but I'll get onto that a bit later, I guess. After Norfolk, I went to university in a town called Sheffield. And after Sheffield, I basically moved to just below Norfolk to an area called Suffolk, which I guess is, surprise, surprise, the south of Norfolk. And I now live in a city called Ipswich. So that's kind of my Draw My Life video over, guys. Thanks for watching. But no, I guess I'll do a little bit about my family. They're important. I have my mum and my dad. My mum is a nurse and my dad works in business. They now live in Milan in Italy. I have my little brother, who is not that little. He's actually quite tall and is only about a year younger than me. And I have me, I suppose. That's our entire family unit. Me and my brother were not very close when we were younger. He used to just wind me up all the time, but we're like best friends now. I've always been taller than him, so haha, screw you, Alex. We lived in some terrace houses when I was growing up, and a terrace house, for those of you that don't know, is basically houses that are joined next to each other, and I'm pretty sure I remember being in like the middle one. Can't quite remember because it's been quite a while since I've lived at that house, but we lived in a terrace house for the most part growing up. We moved to a detached house when I was 11, which was good because it gave my brother and I our own rooms, which allowed us to have a bit more space, and from that point forward we became a bit better friends. From about the age of 8, we used to watch Dad play PC games on his old PC. You know, back in the 90s, you had really potato PCs, but it could run some of the early games like Doom and Tomb Raider. And we used to watch him play these games at night because he'd get back from work pretty late and he liked to play games. And this is kind of a way that we bonded with him. Like, we'd sit there and we'd just like cheer him on and we'd help him through hard bits. And it kind of stoked our love for games. He also bought us our first console, which was the Nintendo 64. And I remember coming home from a karate lesson one day and he'd bought it. And he'd said, oh, look, we've got GoldenEye and Super Mario, and we started playing together. So we bonded a lot with our dad through this process of playing games and watching him play games. And his love for games kind of stoked our love for games, because both me and my brother still play games a lot. Obviously, games are kind of half my career at this point in time. So this is like a big reason why I do what I do. Not only have my parents been like super supportive of me and have kind of helped me at every stage of my career, they've also kind of given me that platform to build from a very young age the passion that I have for games now. At the age of 13, I got my own PC, and that allowed me to start playing games like Diablo 2 and World of Warcraft, and played Medal of Honor myself as well. World of Warcraft and Diablo 2 dominated like 6 or 7 years of my life at different stages. I love RPG games. I was obsessed with RPG games. They were my favorite type of game. But going away from games for a second, as I grew up through school, going to high school, I was a bit of a geek. I kind of hung out in the library with my library friends. I studied really heavily and I loved science and maths. And at about 16 years old, I decided to do science and maths as further education towards my A-levels. I don't know what you guys would call it where you're from, but it's basically the exams you do between 16 and 18 before you go to university. I decided to take 4 subjects, biology, chemistry, physics and maths, and did those in order to get into university. At the age of 16, I decided to apply to university. It was the logical step from my college education. I'd done really well in my first year, and so I had a lot of options available to me. The problem was I was 16. I just wanted to play World of Warcraft and raid bosses and forget about my future life, but really I had to make a decision at this point. The problem was that I was heavily influenced in this decision. My granddad told me I was too soft-hearted to be a lawyer or go into business, which is funny because I think actually on reflection, you need to have a pretty tough heart to go into medicine. And my school was a state school, which means it was funded by the government. So we didn't quite have access to the resources like private school education or grammar school education would have. And that meant that very few people got sent to medical school, dental school, or veterinary school. And it was a big honour for them to send someone to that kind of educational establishment, so they kind of pushed me towards that as well. The problem was that I didn't really know any better. I didn't know what else I could do and what other options were available to me, which realistically, when I look back at it, there were plenty of options available to me. When I actually went to medical school, I found that I loved the first few years. University lifestyle, meeting new people, living with people that weren't my parents. I loved the lectures, I loved learning. Everything about the first few years was fantastic. The problem was when it came to the second half of medical school, I really started to struggle. I loved certain aspects of clinical. I liked psychiatry. I liked GP practices, which gave me the autonomy to have one-on-one conversations with patients. I really disliked hospitals. I could never really put my finger on why exactly I dislike hospitals, but I always chalk it up to the fact that they very heavily affected my mood. The environment in a hospital is obviously depressing, and I think it takes a certain type of person to be able to deal with that on a daily basis. I just wasn't that type of person. I also really found it difficult the way that you were treated as a medical student and even as a junior doctor. A lot of the ways that consultants would talk to you would be kind of almost demeaning and maybe humiliating if you didn't know an answer to a question. I understand the need to reiterate the importance of education in medicine, because at the end of the day, you're looking after human lives. So it's really important to make sure that you know what you need to do in medicine. What I found difficult is when I got asked a question about an enzyme in the pancreas that did a specific thing that was not relevant to anything that I'm ever going to need to know in terms of saving a human life, or if it does, it's going to be a 1 in a million, that you get ridiculed for not knowing that in front of your peers. And I found that really difficult sometimes. Not all consultants were like that, but just the couple of situations, it was enough to turn me off that and made me feel like it was not a kind of career that I wanted to be in the long term. My mood was so heavily affected that I got pretty down towards the end of medical school. I made the decision to do something different with my life, and it was triggered by a specific event. So towards the end of medical school, my granddad, who influenced me to go into medical school in the first place, passed away. He died from a cancer called cholangiocarcinoma, which is a cancer of the bile duct. It's very aggressive and very hard to treat. At this point, I was pretty close to my granddad. I helped in the care for him when he had cancer, but I'd also spent a lot of time with him because he lived in the same city that I went to university in. I took this time to reflect after his death and thought, what is it that makes me happy? Because medicine wasn't making me happy. I think to be a doctor, you have to be committed to the idea of being a doctor, and I think because I applied so young and didn't really realize what it would entail, I really struggled with the prospect of doing this for the rest of my life. So I took a step back and said, I want to do something and create a career for myself that actually makes me happy, so that I could wake up in the morning and feel good about doing some work. The problem with medical school is I'd wake up in the morning for placement, and I would rather be anywhere than be in the hospital. So it was really tough for me to actually get through it. Through medical school, I started doing part-time commentating on university esports. I did it mainly for League of Legends. I basically just talked a lot about games, and I found out that actually I was pretty good at it. At the end of medical school, after I'd finished with my degree, SEMC and Vainglory offered me the opportunity to go full-time with a casting career. They gave me a really good income and wanted me to cast Vainglory full-time. I did it and I really enjoyed it, and it gave me the platform to do what I love and also potentially pursue other avenues. I opened up a business that looks primarily at influencer connection consulting and also looking at digital marketing. That's a really boring part of my life, and I probably don't need to talk about it too much. I also started then thinking about doing content for Vainglory, and around January 2017, I decided that I was going to start a YouTube channel and do educational Vainglory content. I definitely don't do spelling content because I spelt YouTube YoTube. Good job, Kiernan. But I also decided to stream sometimes, sometimes. So this is kind of where my life got to. I left medical school, decided not to be a doctor, came away with 2 degrees, which is great. I guess I could do other things in the future. And Vainglory gave me a platform to do what I love full time. And I'm in a position now where I'm still doing what I love full time. I'm still creating content, I'm still trying to stream, and I still get to cast, which is obviously my primary passion. And no small part of that is thanks to you guys who support me and have followed me and helped shape my career itself. So thank you so much, guys. I've also got Casper, my dog. He's pretty cool. But yeah, that's my life. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you watched this far, I know it's incredibly interesting hearing about the fun of medical school and all that kind of stuff. But definitely felt good to talk about myself a little bit because obviously I haven't had the chance to do that too much. In terms of Vainglory-related videos, This week I'll be releasing some videos on hero win rates and hero pick rates across regions, so we can talk about those in greater detail. And I'll also be looking at videos on self-improvement, so I'll be, especially with 5v5 ranked coming out, where people are going to be so tempted to blame their teammates every game, I'm going to publish a video talking about how you can focus on improving yourself and obviously not trying to improve your teammates, which is impossible. See you soon, guys.